In the quaint town of Eldridge, Sarah, an adopted girl, and her loyal golden retriever Max find themselves entwined in a series of eerie adventures that test their courage and reveal the supernatural layers hidden in everyday places. From the haunted whispers of their new Victorian home to a fog-shrouded hike in the mysterious Clearwater Forest, and a ghostly encounter on a historic train ride through the countryside, Sarah and Max navigate the thin veil between the natural and the paranormal. Each unsettling experience brings them closer, forging an unbreakable bond as they discover that some mysteries once unearthed refuse to be buried again. In the quiet town of Eldridge, nestled between thick, whispering pines and the relentless murmur of the ocean, there stood an old Victorian house, seemingly untouched by time. This house, with its peeling paint and creaky floors, became the new home of an adopted girl named Sarah and her golden retriever puppy, Max. Sarah had always felt a little out of place, like a puzzle piece trying to fit into the wrong puzzle. Her adoptive parents were kind and loving, but the house, with its endless hallways and shadowy corners, felt alive in a way that made her uneasy. Max, with his boundless energy and wagging tail, seemed oblivious to the house's eerie atmosphere. One night, as thunder rumbled distantly and lightning flickered through the curtains, Sarah awoke to Max growling softly at the foot of her bed. His ears were perked, his body tense. Following his gaze, she saw her bedroom door slowly creak open. Thinking it was just the wind, Sarah got up to close it, but Max refused to leave the bed, his eyes fixed on the dark hallway. As the days grew shorter and the nights longer, strange occurrences began to unfold. Sarah would often hear the sound of faint whispers echoing through the corridors, and Max would bark at empty rooms, his hackles raised. The old dusty mirrors seemed to flicker with shadows that weren't there, and cold spots would appear and disappear with no reasonable explanation. One chilly October evening, while exploring the attic, Sarah found a locked trunk hidden beneath a dusty tarp. The lock was old and rusted, easily broken with a small push. Inside, she discovered an assortment of old photographs and journals belonging to a little girl who once lived in the house. Her name was Emily. As Sarah flipped through the journals, she realized that Emily spoke of an invisible friend named Mara, who would play with her and talk to her at night. The entries grew increasingly disturbing, with Emily mentioning how Mara wanted her to be with her forever, and how the cold never seemed to leave her bones. That night, Sarah and Max were awoken by the sound of a soft giggle coming from the hallway. Max growled, his body rigid as he stared into the darkness. Sarah, heart pounding, followed the sound to the end of the corridor, where the temperature dropped sharply. There, in the flickering light of her flashlight, she saw the fleeting image of a small girl, her eyes hollow, her smile too wide. Terrified but determined to uncover the truth, Sarah continued to read Emily's journals. She learned that Emily had mysteriously vanished one winter, and her parents had left shortly after, heartbroken and defeated. The house had remained empty until Sarah and her family moved in. Convinced that Emily's spirit was restless and perhaps not alone, Sarah decided to contact a local medium. During the seance, the medium revealed that Mara was a malevolent entity that had latched onto the house, feeding off the energy of its inhabitants, especially the children. With the help of the medium, Sarah conducted a cleansing ritual to free Emily's spirit and banish Mara. Max barked and whined as the air grew thick and the house shook slightly, as if protesting the eviction of its longtime dweller. Finally, the air cleared and a sense of peace settled over the house. Though the shadows seemed less menacing and the whispers had faded, Sarah and Max no longer felt alone in the old Victorian house. They had faced the horrors of the past together, and though the memories of those terrifying nights lingered, they knew they had each other, bound by an unspoken understanding that some doors, once opened, never fully close. The village elders, wise in the old ways, convened and summoned Rowan. Filled with guilt over his folly, Rowan agreed to a desperate plan to appease the angered spirit. He would venture into the haunted depths of the marsh, to the ruins of an old chapel where Sir Cedric had once sworn his knightly oaths, to find a relic capable of rebinding his soul. Guided by the faint, sorrowful wails of the night echoing through the fog, Rowan trudged through the marsh. After what seemed like an eternity, he discovered the ruins overgrown and somber under the moonlight. There, amidst the rubble, he found an ancient altar with a chalice encrusted with emeralds still faintly glowing with holy energy. Rowan hurried back, the chalice secure in his grasp. At the base of the keeper's tree, with the village gathered around him, he placed the chalice on the ground and respectfully retied the black ribbon around the branch. As the knot tightened, Sir Cedric's spirit appeared, his eyes no longer blazing with fury, but glimmering with a silent gratitude. With a nod of acknowledgement to Rowan, Sir Cedric mounted his spectral steed once more, and as the first light of dawn touched the horizon, he faded into the mist, the peace restored. The villagers vowed to honor the ribbon and the night, and Rowan was remembered not as the boy who unleashed havoc, but as the one who restored the guardian spirit to his eternal watch. In a small village surrounded by thick woods, there was a famous old tree. This tree had a shiny black ribbon tied around it. Everyone in the village knew that the ribbon was special and should never be untied. One day, a new family moved into the village. They had a young boy named Tom, who was curious and loved exploring. Tom heard stories about the ribbon from the other kids, but didn't really believe them. He thought it was just a ribbon and nothing more. One afternoon, while playing near the tree, Tom decided to see what would happen if he untied the ribbon. Despite his friends yelling at him to stop, Tom pulled the ribbon loose. As soon as the ribbon fell to the ground, suddenly a swirl of mist came out from where the ribbon had been tied. It formed into the shape of a friendly-looking old man who introduced himself as the guardian of the forest. The guardian explained that the ribbon was a magical seal that kept him attached to the tree. By untying it, Tom had set him free. The guardian wasn't angry, but he was sad because he needed to be attached to the tree to keep the forest safe and healthy. Tom felt bad for causing trouble and wanted to fix his mistake. He asked the guardian what he could do to help. The guardian told Tom that he needed to find a new ribbon, one that could only be found deep in the forest, in a hidden meadow filled with flowers that glowed in the dark. Tom bravely set off on his adventure through the woods. It was a long and tiring journey, but finally he found the glowing flowers and the new ribbon among them. Tom rushed back to the old tree with the new ribbon. With the help of the guardian, he tied the new ribbon around the tree. The moment the knot was tight, the forest came alive again with sounds, and the guardian smiled. The guardian thanked Tom for his courage and help. He told Tom that he had learned a valuable lesson about listening to warnings and respecting old traditions. Tom promised to always take care of the forest and share the story of the ribbon with anyone who might not believe. From then on, Tom was known as a hero in the village, and he made sure the ribbon was never disturbed again. The villagers and the forest lived in peace, all thanks to Tom's adventure and the magic of the black ribbon. To always take care of one crisp autumn evening, Sarah decided to take a quaint old train ride through the countryside with Max, hoping to enjoy the changing colors of the leaves from an unusual vantage point. The local railway offered a special route once a year, known for its stunning scenic views and a gentle ride along the river that mirrored the sky. Excited for a relaxing journey, Sarah and Max boarded the antique train, which was beautifully restored and echoed with the whispers of a bygone era. Max, wearing a special harness for safety, wagged his tail energetically, his eyes wide with curiosity at the new environment. Sarah found them a cozy compartment with large windows, perfect for soaking in the passing landscape. As the train chugged along, the rolling hills and dense forests came alive with the fiery hues of fall, reds, oranges, and yellows so vivid they looked painted. Sarah leaned back, her eyes roaming over the scene, while Max sat attentively by her side, occasionally poking his nose against the window glass when a particularly interesting bird or squirrel caught his eye. As the sun began to set, casting a golden glow over everything, the train conductor announced over the intercom that they would be passing through the historic Millerville Tunnel, a highlight of the trip. The tunnel, carved out of the mountain in the early 1900s, was famous for its rumored echoes of old train whistles from the past, a quaint ghost story that added to the charm of the ride. Sarah felt a flicker of excitement mixed with a hint of apprehension as the train approached the tunnel. The light from the windows quickly vanished, plunging their compartment into darkness, illuminated only by the soft yellow glow of the overhead lamp. Max pressed closer to Sarah, his body tense. As the train rattled and roared through the tunnel, a different sound gradually rose above the clamor of the wheels. A faint whistle, not unlike the one their train had, but older, sadder. Max's ears perked up, and he whimpered softly, staring down the darkened corridor of the train. Sarah, heart pounding, listened intently. The whistle sounded again, closer this time, as if it were moving along the train. Max growled, a low, rumbling sound that Sarah had rarely heard from him. She reached out to soothe him, but her hands froze as she saw a faint glow outside their compartment window, a glow that couldn't possibly be there in the belly of a mountain tunnel. The glow grew brighter, coalescing into the form of an old steam-powered train engine, its lights flickering like the flames of candles. It ran alongside their train, only visible for moments before fading into the darkness of the tunnel again. Sarah could see shadowy figures in the windows of the ghostly train, faces pressed against the glass, as if searching for something they had lost long ago. Max barked sharply, breaking the eerie spell. As suddenly as it had appeared, the vision vanished, leaving only the steady sound of their own train emerging from the tunnel into the twilight. The compartment filled with a dim post-sunset light, and Sarah exhaled a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. The rest of the journey passed without incident, but the image of the ghost train lingered in Sarah's mind. When they finally disembarked, the conductor, noticing Sarah's pale face, asked if they were all right. Sarah just nodded, not fully trusting herself to speak. As they drove home under the stars, Sarah couldn't help but wonder about the apparition. Was it merely a trick of the light and the power of suggestion, or had they truly glimpsed something supernatural? Regardless, she knew one thing for sure. She and Max had shared another extraordinary adventure, adding yet another layer to their bond and a story they would never forget.